Hey there, happy Wednesday Guardians. Hope you guys are having a great day. Today we're going to be talking about the character screen in Destiny 2. So to open the character screen, you can click I on mouse and keyboard or select on controller. So I know this can be really daunting for a lot of new and returning players. So we're gonna break this down. We're gonna go left to right, and I don't have a script prepared. We're just gonna take our time and tour this screen. So first on the left we have the clan. So this is pretty self-explanatory. This will show if you're in a clan. You can see who's online. You can see invites for your clan. You can also leave your clan. So next we have collections. Now there's a lot of stuff here, right? So over here we have recently discovered. So any new item, whether it's an armor, a shader, a weapon that you haven't gotten, this will just show in order. This is the most recent one over here of what you discovered. So down here for records, so medals, these are just quick unlocks that you got through gameplay. So for example, if I were to go and defeat two opponents at close range with a shotgun, without switching weapons or reloading, I would earn this medal. Anytime I come to this screen, it would highlight, and then I could click it, and then that would reward me with that medal. You can also track the medal. And you have Crucible medals, and these are the different categories, so we got different game modes over here. You got some Gambit medals over here, and Vanguard medals. So lore. So these are often unlocked by doing special things such as picking up a lore like in a raid or a dungeon, or progressing through a story from the campaign or a seasonal / episode. And once you unlock them, you can go here and see how they're highlighting. You can just click them, and then I've kind of claimed it, and then you can read it. So these ones are 1 page each, and these are from the Vanguard. There's also the light, so these are kind of like their own little books, and these have multiple pages in them. And it can get pretty crazy. There's a lot of lore in this game. So click it if you wanted to stop glowing, and then eventually you can kind of settle down. If you ever want to learn about the lore, you can go in here. You can also check out channels such as like My Name is Bife, because great channels like that really consolidate all the lore into videos that you can kind of just watch for entertainment, or you can just read it on your own. So patterns and catalysts. So patterns have been added since the Witch Queen expansion, which was the expansion in early 2022. So basically what a pattern is certain weapons have patterns, and you'll notice that it's a patterned weapon if it comes, you get a weapon and it has a red border around it. So the weapon literally has a red border around it. You can claim the red border, and that'll give you a pattern. Okay? Once you get enough patterns, you can craft the weapon. Now I'm going to put out a guide for crafting later, but just know for now that a bunch of different weapons have patterns once you complete the amount of patterns. So for example, this Come to Pass auto rifle needs 2 patterns, and then I can craft it. And then you level it up, and then you can put whatever perks on it you want. So it kind of bypasses the random roll or the RNG aspect of the game. Not every weapon has a pattern, so keep that in mind. Some weapons do still rely on the RNG random rolls. So for example, this bow right here, this is from the most recent raid. So I've gotten all 5 patterns, and I just clicked on it, and now I can craft that. And now, again, show you guys a crafting video, but just know for now, you can craft weapons in this game, and it's pretty cool. It's very useful. That way you don't really need to worry about RNG. So these are all like the primary ammo weapons. These are the special ammo weapons, and then heavy ammo. You can kind of go through these, and there's a lot of good ones here. Now for catalysts, so exotic weapons, a lot of them have catalysts. Not all, but most of them do. So what a catalyst does, it's a certain thing you have to do. Like this one, I have to do a bunch of steps. So insert the catalyst into the weapon. I need to defeat a bunch of enemies in Crucible, and then I need to get medals, right? So that was kind of tough. For this one, I just needed to get precision kills. So the catalyst gives you a boost of that weapon's power. And I'll show you an example. So this is an exotic weapon, and this is the catalyst. So it says while Devour is active, this weapon weakens on hit. So get the catalyst through certain activities, and it'll tell you what activity to get that catalyst from. Sometimes it's a random drop, sometimes you have to do a quest. and then complete whatever it wants you to complete. And then you equip the catalyst, and now it has an extra effect. And it is completely variable on what the weapon does. So like Outbreak, right? So this is the catalyst for here. Disease Vector increases nanite damage. Or Thunderlord, causing lightning strike with this weapon partially reloads it from reserves. So not all catalysts are created equal, but in general, they're a fun little way to power up your exotic weapons, and this is also filtered into kinetic, energy, and power, which I will explain in a second. And then you have stat trackers. So these are just cool little overall stat stuff, right? So these are like all my final blows. These are from Crucible. I'm not a Crucible player. Destinations, right? And you can see that it tracks from season 10 onward. So some of them have stuff like that. Gambit, raids, strikes, trials. So over here, these are in the collections all of our items. So exotics. So these are all the weapons. So the kinetic slot, which is the first slot, the middle slot for energy, and the bottom for power. And this is just telling me that I have that weapon. So for example, like some of these early weapons, I don't even have. These are all in order of when they release. So first one, this is like one of the oldest ones. And then the most recent one, I don't have. And so on and so forth. Same thing for armor. Same release date. But instead of the slots, this is by class. So this is the Hunter. So I have most of the exotics for Hunter, minus this one. And then Warlocks, yeah, I'm missing this one because it's not highlighted. And then ornaments. So ornaments are typically bought with silver from the Eververse store. And I have a quick little Eververse store guide if you want to go over to the menus and interface playlist that I have. But these just make them look cooler. And again, not all of them are created equal. Some of them don't really do much. It's just like a shader. And keep in mind, most of these are bought with silver, which is real life currency. Occasionally, you can get Eververse ornaments for Bright Dust, which is the in-game currency, so that's really cool. For badges, these are just little badges you can get for completing certain stuff. Alright, so for Journey, so a couple seasons ago, or I guess a couple expansions ago, Destiny 2 introduced commendations. So after each activity, you basically award your teammates, whether it's a 3-man activity, a 2-man activity, or 6-man, or whatever, with commendations. They could be anything from best dressed to best teamwork to communication, stuff like that. There's not too much emphasis put on them, honestly. Most of the people in Destiny community just award whatever commendation you want. Sometimes you need like a certain combination, so if you're coordinating, like, hey, I need the blue one, then give people the blue one. But for the most part, click on the commendation. Be nice to your fellow Guardians. Give them some commendations if you have time after completing an activity. So Guardian ranks is another thing that was added somewhat recently within the last couple expansions. So the way that this works, you can view the rank progress. So when you start out, like brand new, right? So you start out at rank 1. And you can see progress 1 of 1, so it has you do one thing, right? And you're going to progress through the ranks. It'll tell you what to do to get to the next rank. And then you just keep progressing. To claim the rank, so what you'll do is you'll complete everything in here, and then you'll go to the tower, and then it'll guide you to the location. It'll tell you exactly where to go in the tower, and you basically claim the rank, and that kind of like finalizes your rank, and then you can go to the next one. These reset each episode. So it used to be season, but remember the seasons are now episodes. So this resets each episode. So at the end of Act 3 of the current episode, should be in 89 days and 21 hours, then it'll reset. So I have rank 10 from last season or episode. The rank that you get, the Guardian rank you get, it's for that season, and then it lasts through the next season. So if I don't do anything to get at least 10, I'll go back to 6. That's kind of how that works. 6 is like the starting point. 1 through 5 you only got to do one time. The 6 is the starting point. And these get a lot harder too. So like I can't see this season's one, but 10 is a lot of difficult stuff like mastery and stuff like that. 11 is super challenging, like doing solo dungeons. A lot of difficult stuff to get 11. And it's kind of a good way to show off your completions. Here's your titles, which are sorted by activity or raid or expansion, stuff like that. So this is from Salvation's Edge, which is the final shape raid. So this is like a Triumph title. This is Ghost of the Deep. Ghost of the Deep is a dungeon. So like different activities or expansions or seasons, stuff like that, they have, so here's from the final shape expansion, they have different title slots, and then you can do all the requirements, and then you claim it, and then you can be that title. So I don't put a lot of energy into titles. The only one I really care about is Conquer. I've always liked that one. So Conquer involves doing all the Grand Master Nightfalls. So I've always liked doing that one. So I have, so I've guilded this 7 times. I like doing the Grand Masters every season or episode. And basically to guild it means I would need to do all of these before this current season episode ends. And then I would be able to guild it, and then it'll my number go up. Number go up good. So then I'd be number 8 for gilded. And then you could see some older ones here, right? Some of these you can't acquire anymore, like previous seasons, which unfortunately are not available anymore, right? Triumphs, we already talked about that. Seasonal challenges, this just links you to the seasonal challenge page, which you can also get to from the quest tab. So character screen. So this is a lot of stuff, but we're going to break this down. Okay, so top left, so here is our subclass. So you can see my current subclass is this one right in the middle, right? So this is Strand. And then you have obviously Void, Solar, Stasis, Arcstrider, and then the new subclass Prismatic, which is for final shape. So you just kind of click on whatever one you have, and then you open it, and then you can equip different stuff in it, right? So your super is always going to be over here. If you have more than one super option, it'll show here. Stasis only has one super, but like if I equipped Solar, you see like there's different types of supers, right? So these are broken down into 3 sections. So you have abilities. So I'm on Hunter right now. So Hunter has a dodge. So I have a couple different dodge options. I have my jumps, whatever jump that I like. I have my melees, and then I have my grenades. All subclasses are different. And then each class has a different type of jump and class ability. So Hunter, for example, the class ability is a dodge, different types of dodges. Titan's class ability is like a barricade shield, different types of shields, and then Warlock's is a rift that you can place down. And they all do different things. And you can customize this to your heart's content. It's pretty cool. The next section is aspects. So the way that these works are you equip aspects, so you can equip 2. And then you see it says fragment slots on the top. So that says 2 out of 3 because 2 are highlighted. That means I can equip 2 fragments for this one. So I have 2 aspects, one with 2 fragments and one with 3. So I can equip a total of 5, right? And you can customize this to your heart's content. You can do whatever you want. These give bigger, like gameplay changing abilities. And then from here, fragments are like little nice things. And this is where the build crafting part comes into play with Destiny. So don't worry about making a great build when you're first starting out. Just know kind of in essence how it works. You equip aspects, they give you fragment slots, and then you equip the fragments. So the fragments will be a thing. It'll be like this one is like Solar, Grenade, Final Blows, Cure You. And then anything that's in blue highlighted, that's like a verb of that subclass. So the way that the verbs work are it's basically like a thing related to that subclass. So Cure is a solar verb, and it says you are healed in a burst of mending solar light. So you can see a bunch of other ones here, like class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets, and then while highlighting it explains what scorch is. But again, I wouldn't worry about that right now. I wouldn't worry about like all of the subclass verbs because there's a lot of them, right? So like if you go to Arc, it's the same thing for Arc, but they're completely different. So Arc has like Jolt and Amplified and Blinding. Just know how the system works in general. So you can equip supers here, abilities, aspects, and fragments. And then eventually over time, you'll come to understand like what these actually mean with the verbs, right? So those are the subclasses. This is Prismatic from the new one. So this one's a little different. This one's a little more complex because you can kind of equip a bunch of different things. So this is a release for the Final Shape expansion. So you see I have a bunch of different subclass supers to choose from. And then I have different aspects from different subclasses, and these are all mix and match. So Prismatic pretty much combined all of our subclasses together into something that I can really mix and match. So going down the list here for weapons, so this top slot, this is your kinetic slot, okay? So kinetic just means it's in the top slot. In this slot are kinetic weapons, such as this weapon, Outbreak Perfected. You can see it has a white symbol with primary. That means it does kinetic damage. Down here is the energy slot. So you can see there's a void symbol, right? See the purple void symbol? Or like the red solar symbol? Do I have an arc weapon here? Yeah, I do. Or the arc one. So all of your energy weapons go here. These are all energy weapons. So these are special ammo or primary ammo used weapons that are with the light energy. So these are light only. Now, the confusing part about the darkness subclasses, which are stasis and strand, are they didn't put those weapons into this slot because it would overcrowd the slot pretty much. So this top slot, the kinetic slot, also has stasis weapons, as you can see from the green symbol there. Or excuse me, that's strand. And then it also has stasis, which is the blue symbol here. So that's kind of how it's broken down. It was never really explained for newer players, but they basically just made that choice to avoid overcrowding this slot, right? And then down here you have your power weapons. So these are going to be your swords. Well, most of your swords. Now they're making swords that go in other slots, but most of the swords are down here. Your heavy grenade launchers, your big machine guns, rocket launchers, stuff like that. Stuff used for damage or big boom. So here you have your ghost. And you can equip the shell on them, make them look all cool. You can put different shaders on them. So on the ghost, you can put mods. So once you get a ghost and you upgrade the energy, which should cost enhancement cores and glimmer, I believe, you can equip these mods, right? So the most important one is always going to be just experience gains. Don't worry about too much in here besides more experience is good. Like 9 times out of 10, you're going to want more experience. Honestly, 10 times out of 10, you can probably just use more experience, right? But there's other stuff in here like detect caches. So these are like chests you can find while on planets. So you can like see them easier on the map. This one increases your glimmer. So if you're running low on glimmer, you can kind of throw one of these on, right? So anytime you get glimmer, which you get from any activity, you can throw these on to increase it. There's also mods on here that any armor drop you get, which again, this is a looter shooter game, so you're going to get a lot of drops, right? So any armor you get, having this mod, it like focuses the armor, which allows you to get whatever the mod tells you. So if I get armor, this will have guaranteed minimum of 10 discipline, for example. And then they all have a different stat on them, right? And then over here, these are just pretty self-explanatory. Do an activity, get a chance at prisms, right? Stuff like that. Do an activity, get a chance at cores, which are just materials. So over here you have your overall power. And I know this can be kind of confusing, but don't overthink it too much. So power has been kind of the focus has been placed away from it, especially this most recent expansion. Because of the way the activities work, a lot of the times you're going to be pulled up to power with whoever the fire team leader is, whoever is highest in power. So this is just kind of in general how it works. So this is just an aggregate of your gear plus your artifact. And I'll get to the artifact in a second. So right now I'm 1975 gear, and then plus 10 bonus. That bonus is coming from the artifact. Speaking of, here's your artifact. So every episode now, it used to be every season, but every episode you get an artifact. So what this does is, one, it gives you additional light levels. So this gives me a flat plus 10 because I've leveled it up. And then you also get certain abilities in the artifact. The artifact typically defines the meta for that season or episode. Typically, you're going to want to run stuff based on what the artifact is giving you for power, right? So, for example, the artifact might have a bunch of solar mods, right? So like this one's like a solar mod. Maybe it's and that would kind of tell you like, okay, it's a solar season. There's a lot of good solar stuff, right? This season or episode, Void is really good because of perks like this, Expanding Abyss. Void sources deal increased damage to weakened targets. So you can kind of explore, and this will help you play the game. Don't worry about too much about like, what's the most efficient choice. Just know that there's a ton of options here, and you can kind of just play however you like. This first column, though, I will touch on. So there are champions in Destiny. So the way that they work are in higher level content, you're going to run into enemies that they can't be really brought down with normal weapons, right? You have to like stun them, or you have to like break their barrier or stuff like that, right? So in all of the artifacts, no matter what artifact it is, this first column is always going to be your anti-champion column, and this basically tells you. So this one is anti-barrier pulse rifle. So in higher level content, you'll run into an enemy, and it's like a barrier champion, and you'll know because you'll start shooting him, and then he'll bring out a red barrier, like a big circle, and then you're like, oh god, I can't shoot through it. So it's pretty obvious once you get to that content, like to recognize what is a barrier champion. It also says like the name of the champion. It'll be like barrier hobgoblin, for example, or barrier servitor. And what this does is if I have a pulse rifle equipped, then I can just shoot through the barrier. So stuff like that. Or like this one, like overloads are nasty, annoying enemies that teleport around the room and do all this weird stuff, right? And to deal with them, you need to shoot them and stun them. So this mod, for example, overload hand cannon, if I shoot a bunch of times, I can stun them with my hand cannons, and then they'll stop, and then I can deal with them from there. And these reset every season, so these also shape the meta of like what the strong weapons are for that season or episode, based on the champion mods, if you're playing that content. So going over here, so you have your Guardian ranks, which I talked about a little bit. So stats. So stats are big in Destiny. Eventually, you're gonna want to like know what kind of stats should I get, and I'll probably do a separate video for that. But in general, the only thing you should really know about stats for like basic steps is just go for resilience. So resilience is the only stat. If you were just to take one thing off the stats to know like now and worry about the rest later, resilience just gives you more damage reduction. So just focus on that for now, and then eventually you can learn about the other ones. But resilience is by far the most important. You want to get this as high as possible because you just take less damage from enemies. And then over here you have your armor. I forgot to mention, so in case you don't know, for each of the 3 weapons, I can equip 1 exotic, and for each of my 5 armor slots, I can equip 1 exotic. In case you're like new to the game and aren't familiar with the concept of exotics, every other armor has to be a non-exotic armor piece. And then, yeah, so here's our armor. So this is an example of my armor. I'll go through mods on a separate video because this is already getting pretty long. Yeah, you can see my stats here, and then these obviously all add up to my main stats, right? And then you see I can't equip this exotic because I already have one. What if I do that, right? Oh, loadouts. So loadouts. So these were added recently as well. This is basically a way to save certain loadouts. So this is pretty cool. So for example, there you go. So this is a loadout I saved, and you can change the icon. You can see in the top right there it says swap icon, swap name, swap color. So you can kind of make it pretty, make it all nice and organized. Mine's a little messy, but it's okay. But yeah, you can just change loadouts on the fly. That way you don't need to use like third-party software. And so you see I have like 2 open slots, so I can even make 2 more if I wanted to. But loadouts are cool. You can do a lot of stuff here, and you can kind of... This way you don't have to, every time you do a different activity, you have to like, oh, I have to change my loadout. So eventually, once you start build crafting and really like understanding how the build crafting works, and these save everything. So this saves like my subclass, it saves all my fragments, my aspects, all my abilities. It saves the weapons and armor that were equipped. Sometimes the weapons and armor gets a little weird because it has to like pull it from the vault. But for the most part, it does pretty well. You see it changes all my stuff. And then this is the clan banner. Don't worry about this too much. This kind of just looks cool. Kind of just chills here. You can change your clan banner and make it look cool. So inventory. So this looks confusing, and even crazier is it used to be even way more confusing because Destiny has had like a historic problem of having just like a million pieces of inventory, consumables, like planetary resources, and it just got confusing for no reason, honestly. So they've slowly like been narrowing out the choices of our resources and consumables and stuff like that. It's still pretty bad. I'm not going to go through like all these individually, at least on this video, but just know a lot of your inventory stuff goes here. If you were to keep like a few things to keep in mind, upgrade modules, which allows you to infuse gear to other gear for like higher light. So for example, if I go to this chest piece, here's a bad example. I need to find a lower one. That's fine. So see how this says 1990 on this? So I can take this, and then I can go over here, And then see how these are grayed out? I can't infuse into a lower power, right? So if this is 1990, I can make it higher light by basically using an upgrade module and then replacing it with this, which will be 1993. So that's how that works. And that's kind of how you increase your light as well. Like say, like I want to keep using these, like I don't want to like replace it with something else, right? You can just increase your light. These are your engrams. So you can go to the tower, which I'll do a whole tower video, and you can claim these engrams and turn them in for stuff. You can get like weapons, armor, stuff like that. You can also focus a lot of the engrams. They've put a lot of focusing priority recently, to where basically, like exotic engrams, for example, you can like pick a specific exotic piece. That way, it lowers the RNG chance if you're like going for a specific thing. Here's like your currency, so you got some glimmer here, which is used for pretty much everything. Silver, which I've talked about. This is the real life currency, and then bright dust, which is the in-game currency. And then we have our settings. All right, so we got keyboards and mouse settings. I'm not going to go through all of these on this video, but just know you got a bunch of settings here. So however you like to play, you can change it to your heart's content. Everything should be good by default though. The default settings are usually pretty solid, especially starting out. There's really not much you're going to have to change for default settings for controller or keyboard mouse. Video, this is more for like PC. Like obviously I have more customizable graphic settings, but on console you have limited options. Sound settings, like if you don't like the music, which the music is good, but if you don't like it, if it's not your thing, you can turn it down obviously. Stuff like that. Dialogue cinematics, right? If you're just shooting stuff in the background and you're listening to the music, you can turn all the sound off. You can change your character from here, from the gameplay settings. Exit to the desktop. Oh yeah, there's some colorblind options here, which is cool. You can switch up the subtitle options, the HUD opacity. So like when you're like on the ground, like shooting, like in gameplay, it's kind of like how strong the opacity on your heads-up display shows up. You turn your helmet on. Helmet always on for me. And then social. These are kind of just like if you don't want to see anybody, if you kind of just want to play by yourself, or if you want, you know, all the team chats on, if you're in like a public space. Yeah, this video is already super long, but I hope you guys took something away from this. There's a lot in this character screen, and I hope this helps. See you guys later.